Internet Explorers. It's time for Internet Explorers. It's time for Internet Explorers.
Oh, baby, we are back. What episode is this piece?
I think we're on
40?
41.
41?
Yeah.
Hey, that's how old I am. Wait, is that how old I am? That's fun. It's my birthday episode. Welcome to my birthday episode. Hello, everybody. Internet Explorers, every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, where we catch up on whatever the heck has happened in crypto and the consumer space over the past week. It has been a few things, I think, piece. Our dear friend Josh is gallivanting around New York today. Sounds fun and wet. But I think we're going to have a surprise guest host. Hopefully he'll show up shortly. Until then, Jesse, the timing of your entrance here, my friend, was phenomenal. He can't even hear me right now. So we'll take advantage of this right now. We have Jesse joining us as a guest host today from Variant. What up, Jesse?
What's up, guys? Are we live? Like this live stream?
Oh, baby, we live. We're on the internet, man. And you joined. I was just saying, I think we have a surprise guest, and then you popped up. So this is wonderful.
Okay.
So Jesse's obviously the founder of Variant, a fund that's doing a lot of investment in consumer crypto these days, and traditionally. And of course, he built. Is MediaChain a consumer product? Was that the intention, or?
So initially, it was called something else. Like when we started the company, it was called Mine.NYC. Which was a consumer product, and like specifically it was take all the photos in your camera roll, hash them, put them on the Bitcoin blockchain, and so that was the first app we built. We realized that's insanely expensive, and they were like, oh shoot, we got to go build a chain that can handle this.
the path that many founders have followed since, and here we are.
I don't think it's up still. So.
Yeah, right. We got a great show today. We have Hedrin joining us as our guest from Ordinal Genesis. I think last week on the show, we probably announced something that we're working on. And so we're excited to have a look into that world. I mean, writing to Bitcoin, we're kind of running it back here, right? Probably still expensive. Bitcoin L2s. Ooh, so many fun things to get into. Obviously, a pretty volatile week in crypto. Excited to hear your take on this, Jesse. Yesterday was fun. Zora made a big update on their economic model this week. I think that should be a fun conversation. Disrupting Pump.Fun. We're seeing so many of these meme coin launchers. I think there's a really great tweet that kind of asked the question: if you had $10 million, what would you do to disrupt Pump.Fun? Should be an interesting conversation. DGOD's attention assets, which is a flashback to a conversation you and I had in New York last time, and I'm curious on your current take on things. So lots to get into. Very excited to have you with us today, man. And now I get to say hello to Peace Node on the buttons. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Cruising. Too many buttons right there.
Yeah, you got all the buttons.
Yeah, I'm enjoying some salmon and blueberries and talking to all my buddies online. Yeah.
Tell me about how that salmon and blueberries go together, though, Peace. Like, you're just rolling blueberries and salmon, or what?
They're just It's pile food diet right now. It's just like I can't think. We're eating in piles.
I mean, they call that a salad, I think.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Delicious salmon fruit salad. Can't get enough. Yeah, why not?
That's very, very European of you. I love it. Cool. Well, I mean, as always, lots to get in today. So why don't we welcome our first guest up?
Yo. Hello, guys.
What up, Ed?
Hello.
Is Hedrin the right way to pronounce your name?
Yes, Hedrin.
Hedrin, what's up?
Yeah.
Well, Peace, I'll let you kick this one off because you guys have been sort of deepest in this world, and then I've got some questions.
Awesome. Yeah. So Hedra and I met through the Bitcoin Puppets Discord chats, and we started talking about like what it would take to get an Internet Explorer's collection up on Bitcoin. And I came into Ordinal. I knew about Ordinal Genesis from I think Whirly Peas or some other Bitcoin Puppet derivatives, and so I would just love to hear the background on like what the heck is Ordinal Genesis and why Bitcoin and what are you guys doing over there?
Yeah, so I mean, let me just start with introducing myself because I know there's many people that probably don't know me at all. So I'm just a founder of Ordinal Genesis and I lead operations, just lead the team and stuff. I'm also a front-end developer. Yeah, and our team is like super young, like all over the board. We're early 20s and also some 19-year-olds and stuff. And we basically started like when Ordinal started, we were in the trenches with like $100 to our name each, just trading our way up, you know. We didn't really want any outside funding, so we figured out it was better to just trade and fund it ourselves, so we don't need to like report back to anyone at all. So yeah, and also like for example, I don't know if you guys were around when Puppets minted, maybe, probably not. But many of the like early launchpads, they had issues with scalability and their infrastructure on like high volume mints and stuff. So we just saw our opportunity with our like technical experience, and we figured out we can make something better than anyone else, basically.
So Jesse was just saying that they were looking at bringing media onto the Bitcoin blockchain back in what 2016.
2014 we got that out.
It seemed absurd. It seemed an absurd time to say it. And so writing onto. But I'm curious, what was the interest in Bitcoin? Like, why go do this on Bitcoin when there's like so many other easier places to go do this?
Yeah, of course, like Ethereum or Solana, it's much easier. You can just like do smart contracts and stuff, so it's a lot easier. I personally think Bitcoin launchpads for Ordinals are one of the most complex solutions we have for like crypto in general. And also, I mean, it's the mother chain, right? It has to work. If we were to develop somewhere, it was Bitcoin. Also, the other main thing I think is the lack, like me personally, lack of infrastructure builders and just lack of developers in general. I think like in all over the space, you probably have like 10 to 20 like super good devs here. So it's much easier to come in and get a fair share of the market. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, it seems as if there was sort of this like hyped moment. I mean, crypto's so well known for that. And then I think, we're in this, it seems like we're in this phase right now where people are like, well, ordinals are dead. There's nothing happening here. Let's just all pack it up. It's usually a good sign. But I'm curious if you sort of think about the market over the last little while, like where are we in the development of ordinals and the opportunity that ordinals might represent to creators, artists, collectors?
Yeah, I think if you compare it to Ethereum and Solana market caps when it comes to like NFTs and stuff, we're still in like, if you think about it in a lifespan, I think ordinals in general are like early teens, maybe kids, So we still have a lot of way to go. We're also getting like new builders pretty much every other day, new L2s and stuff. So I think right now, maybe the market is a bit more silent, but it gives more opportunity for people like us to actually build something. And when the timing is right, people are actually going to use it. I don't think. I think it's here to stay for sure. Yeah.
Jesse, have you guys looked at anything in the Bitcoin world? You guys doing any Bitcoin?
Yeah,
L2s?
no Bitcoin L2s. Not to say I'm not excited about that. I think it will be exciting. It just got really crazy really fast, and I think I think we're very interested in right now where things have kind of cooled down. So we are spending more time on there now. But we did invest in one project in the kind of the asset space, and not announced yet, but will be announced soon. But yeah, we made one investment in a marketplace, secondary marketplace for Bitcoin ordinals, runes, and so on. And yeah, I guess a question. Can I jump in with a question here?
You are the guest host, sir. This is your responsibility.
Great. Yeah. And so I think my experience actually using the various products in the Bitcoin ecosystem has been that it is significantly more painful. In terms of user experience and stuff like that. Meanwhile, like in Solana, Ethereum, L2s, things have gotten really fast. We're on the cusp of abstracting away a lot of the complexity of interfacing with the chain. And I'm thinking all the way back to Bitcoin 2014. I have a lot of rare Pepes. And it was that was counterparty protocol. It was very painful. Confirmation times were 25 minutes. Today, it's meaningful progress. Bitcoin assets on Bitcoin today is meaningful progress versus 2014. But compared with Solana and L2s in Ethereum, it's still significantly more painful. So I guess I'm just curious. What do you think is what and when is going to change that? What's the time horizon? And is it even important? Is this the right question even to be asking?
Yeah, we have our team internally. It's in the back of our heads, we have the same questions. It's super painful for consumers. Imagine a guy from Solana when you have thousands transactions per second. They come to Ordinals, they try to buy let's say a puppet, they buy it, and then someone snipes the transaction in the mempool, and then they wait for 20 minutes, check their wallet. Oh no, someone took my transaction. I have to rebuy again. So it might take hours to buy an asset if the volume is high enough. Well, I think it's. I personally think it's the beauty of Bitcoin as well. It's very much open, and it's a very much different chain than any other chain. There is really no solution for it unless you start doing bridges and L2 stuff, which I personally am not a big fan of, because you always have the third party risk of getting your stuff rugged and stuff. So I'm not sure if that's something we might see in the future. I'm not sure if we really need it, but at the other hand, we also need it to get people in the ecosystem as well. So it's a loaded question for sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think one of the things that we're excited about is just to, Pieces has designed and team have designed a really fun collection, and we could go do it anywhere. And I think the desire to go do it on Bitcoin was because how hard and weird and different and the fact that when we polled our audience, 99% of them have never bought anything on Bitcoin. And so this idea of leaning into the edges and going in and clicking buttons where you are uncertain what might happen is, I think, a throwback to some of the earlier days that I think all of us came up in. And I think that's exciting for me. And so it sounds like, yeah, there's almost this cultural battle. I mean, probably many cultural battles happening in Bitcoin, but between scalability and not in this new sort of application world versus in the infrastructure world, I think is super interesting.
Yeah, I think for sure, the beauty of having everything super hard and not consumer based is also something good, because you start really valuing the stuff you have versus trading your pictures like shitcoins.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think it's different ends of the spectrum for sure. I think some of the pain of interacting with Bitcoin in a way it adds to the value of the assets on there. Certainly, I think that that's why back in 2014, 15, I think rare Pepes were successful. I think it had a lot to do with how hard it was to produce them, that added to the scarcity value of people wanting to buy them. Now that doesn't scale very well, I don't think, but like that, it means you can have like a higher value ecosystem with fewer transactions potentially.
Yeah, I mean, everything is much more expensive as well, so you kind of get the exclusive chain for exclusive NFTs, and that's how we look at it.
Yep.
One of the
Makes
questions I
sense.
have in my mind is, I think a lot of what drives people's interest in Bitcoin as a execution layer or an asset, a place to launch assets, is just the amount of capital that's in that ecosystem. But I often debate how much of that capital is actually accessible capital or eager capital or ready to go in this stuff. Like I feel like in something like Ethereum, you're probably 50, 68, I don't know what percentages, but it's a massive percentage. And my gut on Bitcoin is that it's actually a lot lower. I hold my Bitcoin is hasn't been touched in years, sort of thing, right? And very purposefully so. So I mean, I think it's an open question in my mind as to whether this sort of it's a consumer product is actually well aligned with the capital that's in Bitcoin, or how much of that is actually interested in experimenting. And this, I think, it's exacerbated by the ETFs, etc.
Totally agreed. I mean, yeah, I think probably the vast majority of Bitcoin is either in Coinbase or cold storage, and there's like no in between. And maybe these applications can change that, because like they didn't none of this really existed before, but it's like it's a little bit more of an uphill battle, I think, to affect that change.
Yeah, which I agree. That's why we love it. I mean, that's like the intrigue, at least, from doing this.
Sure.
So, Peace, do you have any other questions or things we should get into here?
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, as a self-proclaimed techno peasant, I love tuning into these conversations, and I see Udi, like really hyped on Cat VM. I see other teams really hyped on Bit VM, and I'm truly like wondering, like, what impact do you think that will have to existing marketplaces, like your Launchpad, other Launchpads, Magic Eden, and are those development issues like needed, or is it something more like Oil Wallet that is an aggregator of all these places and just like a UI update to these things?
I think probably it makes the job easier for a lot of devs because you start to enable smart contracts. So I think users are also gonna get like a better experience using the launchpads and marketplaces and stuff. But much of the Cat VM stuff is still like under like being worked on. So it's really hard to say what's gonna happen. I'm not sure if we're going to see like new launchpads just using that as well, just to make things easier or not, or if we're going to keep building stuff like we used to before Cat VM. So it's hard to say before the release, really.
I love it. Okay, we're so early.
Yeah, that you're like, I'm a self-proclaimed techno peasant, and then you went off and listed 47 things that I had never heard before. So I think I've just come up with a new idea for maybe the C Club's first TikTok format, which is literally just reading people's either white papers or maybe bio on Twitter to normies on the street to see what the fuck they say, because I think it would be entertaining.
I think it's going to take some time before we actually see any changes. Just like the runes, for example, it took a while before anyone had functioning products, or at least you had some like mint places the first day or second day, but it actually took some time before people started to release other products. So, for example, we made a runes launchpad 14 days after the protocol release. Yeah, it's down right now.
Gross.
Yeah, but we made it like 14 days after protocol, and other people had it ready 2 months afterwards. So it's gonna take some time before everything releases and stuff.
Amazing.
Exciting.
Well, we're really excited to get something out with you guys, and Peace has been singing your praises for a while, so it's wonderful to have you on here with us today and share a little bit into this world that I think most people haven't been paying attention to, or maybe haven't started to play around with. So it's excited to change that. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. Is there anywhere you want to direct people? Anything exciting happening in your world?
I mean, we work as usual. We're a small team, try to make clear comms. But right now, we're just doing stuff, optimizing stuff a bit better. We're also starting to developing like a template for the launchpads, so people can just like do like they do on Solana, where they just edit a template and they can launch stuff pretty much. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, and it was super nice.
Awesome, man. Well, have a wonderful weekend, and let's go.
Yeah, you too, guys.
Awesome. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Yeah, bye.
Bitcoin, the mother chain. I mean, I think this is just the most fascinating part about this world that we live in, is sort of like these cultural networks that sort of emerge, and it's all tech, and then even in the most pure mechanism ever, all these sort of drama and new opportunities and scaling, all this sort of stuff comes out. So I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Oh my god! Wait. Speaking of culture,
You've got
Internet Explorers.
Amazing.
Honestly, my favorite part of the show is when Peace just randomly throws media into our streams. It is always worthwhile, rarely comfortable. That was the most comfortable one. That was the most comfortable one.
love
That
it.
was great.
Cool. Well, it thoroughly threw me off my line of thinking, and we shall continue on. Cool. I mean, yeah. Obviously, the big news this week was been us being poor and then not so poor again, and maybe that being actually felt by anybody who's holding assets across the way. But I think it's probably so much of many of the questions I got over the last week are from our founders, from builders, people who are fundraising, asking like, what impact does this have? Has our view on sort of the market over the next while changed? Where are we in the cycle? My personal reflection was, I think I'm ruined. I'm a ruined human being, Jesse, because it had zero impact on me emotionally.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
+1.
Is that good or bad? I don't know yet. Jury out, I think. But I mean, what's your sort of take on where we are in the market right now, what the last week has been, and what to look forward to?
Well, I should preface everything I'm about to say with like the fact that I'm not a macroeconomist, and I think a lot of what's going on in the market right now is macro driven, and so take everything with a huge grain of salt. But yeah, I mean, like the past week, I similarly felt no type of way about it. Just like dead inside when looking at the price charts. Because I guess like been through many of these like wild up and down swings, and the I guess the thing that's like now quite apparent to me is like it has nothing to do with the fundamentals. Like there's just no like the price when it dips like that much in a day. It's typically because someone blew up, someone big, and then there's just like reflexivity and but like nothing fundamentally has changed. Like markets as being as not kind of perfectly efficient, but quite efficient. Like they just replace the blown up thing, and it gets washed out over time. So, this past week, I think was most similar to Black Thursday in March 2020, which was actually the day after Variant closed its first fund. So like there's a chance had it, done the close a day or two later, Variant wouldn't exist. And it's similar in that it was this panic driven by macro. Back then, it was the market waking up to the fact that COVID was going to be a big deal, and then I think this week it was the macro or the market waking up to the fact that the macro economy may not be in for a soft landing, or maybe it is, and the jury is still out. So I think that's the key takeaway. Is like I think looking forward, the jury is still out on where the macro economy is, but it's like one thing that's definitely true now that probably wasn't true a week ago is that central banks are attuned to that now, and so. I think it really becomes a question of when will they cut, not if they will cut, but when will they cut, and will the market be happy, or are they price it? Is the market pricing in, cuts ahead of where the Fed and other central banks are thinking? I think that's really the biggest driver of not just crypto markets, but all markets right now. And crypto is just kind of caught up in the fray.
It's interesting to watch just like what a 24/7 on market looks like compared to the non. And that weekend was actually kind of interesting because there was all this talk and people kind of knew what was coming, and you could trade it in crypto, but you couldn't trade it in the traditional system. So yeah, I think that's interesting. I think I think it's that sort of that setup that is giving what I would just say is a generally bullish outlook in the next, say, 18 months. That's not, I think I believe that as well, but I would say that's my read on conversations I'm having with the people that I.
Yeah. And look, I think, I'm generally excited about, the future of crypto at a fundamental level. I think what have been like headwinds against crypto over the last 2-3 years are going to become tailwinds. So I'm generally optimistic as well. That said, like, again, because this is macro driven and, macro markets are reflexive because everybody's kind of, it's so social. So like, it's so social, right? Like what are people thinking drives the market. It could get worse before it gets better is like what I would
Oh,
say.
for
like,
sure. I think that's 100%. Peace, I sent you in Telegram an image that my wife sent me as I was talking to her about the carry trade, and her eyes were glazing over. If you bring that up, I feel like that's like the perfect bookend to this conversation. I don't know how easy that is for you to do given your 47 buttons. There you go.
Amazing.
And I was like,
that's great.
No, well, kind of, pretty much this whole conversation,
I have one more thing to add, just like on the forward looking view, which is like, you mentioned, you use the word cycle, and I think, so certainly markets are cyclical. I think what we had in like 21, 22 was this, really kind of crazy frenzy because it was really the first time most people hadn't even heard of crypto, and it was like, kind of stampede to get a piece of it. My view is like we don't get to have that again unless we start building shit that people actually want and use, and I mean at real scale. And so obviously we're doing that to some degree, and we're making good progress. I think if you zoom out and look at like where we were 3-4 years ago, I think like raw ingredients are there, but I don't think we get the same amplitude of frenzy without something that's meaningfully working and validating for crypto in the public eye, because the public eye is default skeptical based on where we were last time.
I think that's 100% it. It's no longer irrelevance that is the bigger thing. It's like disdain.
Right. Which is a bit, it's like the natural progression of things, right? It's like first they laugh at you, then they ignore you, right? Like, then they try to fight you. And we're at that, like they hate us. They're fighting us really hard. So yeah, like the only way, like, so that default means like macro can be a tailwind, but it's not going to give us the same amplitude. The amplitude will come from people actually getting to the last stage of this thing and embracing it, right?
Right. Okay. Because there is sort of like a general belief or assumption that cycles become less intense, right? And so you could argue that 21 most intense, probably not fair to think this, but even you take that out, that there's sort of this natural smoothing of demand. But I think what you said there at the end is kind of interesting, right? Because we're sort of at this moment where you actually have a very small, it's a market, but it's a very small market. What happens when you actually have the inflection point where you're at Facebook level adoption? And
right. Well, the thing is that doesn't ever happen overnight, right? Like that's never an overnight phenomenon. It's like one day you wake up and you're like, oh my God, look what we've accomplished. And so I think that actually fits with like the amplitude kind of coming down just naturally is like you get that in a frenzied moment. And then it's like probably, there'll be ups and downs, but like the magnitude of them the moves will be less, but over time it'll be one direction probably.
Love it. Okay, we'll move away from our astrology section and into the Zora protocol upgrade. So Zora earlier this week announced a change, like a very meaningful change to their model. You guys are investors in Zora, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we are.
And so, I mean, I'll maybe set this up. I had a conversation with Jacob a while back. The thing that it's the thing that I most admire about Zora is how willing to disrupt themselves they are. I actually think it's an essential piece of crypto, given how fast things change. And totally. I think, probably a month ago, sitting down chatting with Jacob, and he was really articulating, I think in a clear sense, where he just felt like the open edition meta, the timed open edition meta that had really led to Zora's growth over the last while was coming to an end, and that they needed to do something different to really step into that. And the specific piece was, how do you get demand into the network? So why are people minting these things? And so looking at what's happening in meme coins and looking at what's happening with open editions, they sort of that combining of those two, some technical improvements that kind of allow that to happen. We sort of seen this combination of tokens and markets, and specifically NFTs and tokens and markets. It's really interesting, and I think people don't really know what to do with it just yet. We're in this digestion phase right now.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm curious your thoughts on the change, because I think it steps into a lot of the things that you and I have talked about over the recent months.
Yeah. So should we just sort of just unpack what it is?
Yes, please.
First.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just I'll probably butcher something here, but I think the key idea is you can now you can mint an NFT, and then once the NFT mint is done and a pool of ETH has been collected by from those who've minted, that pool is then put into a Uniswap pair, and the minters of the NFT can essentially unwrap their NFT into a fungible token and trade it in the Uniswap pair. So the result is like you took an asset, non-fungible tokens, that has historically struggled, I think, with robust secondary markets, and you've made it compatible with Uniswap, which is the king of secondary markets and fungible liquidity. And so I think that's the experiment here that Zora is running. I think it's really interesting, and like you said, I think it's really awesome how they've this is like the 7th time they've just completely flipped the script on what they're building, or what their protocol does.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at this as why is it why might this be a good idea? I think an interesting conversation we could have. I think the theory is that back to your the question you asked and that they've been asking, why are people minting? I think it's I've been saying this for years. It's a combination of patronage and profit. People want to patronize work that they want to see in the world, see more of it, and so they want to support creators. And minting has always been a way to do that. And then the second piece is you want to potentially profit from being early on something, being ahead of the demand, and being that you own these assets on chain, you're actually able to do that, at least in theory, right? You could, the theory is you could resell and profit, but anybody who's been in the NFT market knows that in practice it's actually quite hard, because there's not a lot of secondary demand today, and that's in part because open editions, they're infinite. What's the value? So I think this tries to get right at the heart of that, right? Which is you can still be a patron, you can still mint and support the creative work you want to see in the world. But the potential for profit is much greater, because there's this pool of fungible liquidity that you can there's always on liquidity that you can trade against, and so that the more liquid market increases the potential for profit in theory, and then the key is everybody benefits from this. If there's more secondary volume, the creators make more money too, right? So win-win for all around. So I think maybe I'll park it there. That's a description. That's one attempt at why this might be a good idea. I'm sure there's other things.
I think that's the one that was directly articulated to me here, and I think it's, so we're in this digestive phase. There was a limitless token that was launched a couple days ago that kind of had a bit of a run up. I don't know where it's trading at right now, but there we go. Nice. But I think that, to me, with this, so there's sort of this conversation about the economic model, and then what can kind of get built there, and et cetera, which I think is super, there's a lot of this combination of market and token, effortless create. We're in this world where token, it has been for a while, but where it's not only is it effortless to create a token, but there's actually volume of people creating these tokens. And so there's sort of economic model, and there's also how are we going to make sense of this world that I think is actually relevant? Mm-hmm. And that was what came up pretty big for me when I bought the token, and then I tried to sell the token and I wasn't able to sell the token, and then I kind of was, and all this sort of mess. And I think there are going to be billions of tokens in the world. The vast majority of them are not going to be exceptionally valuable, but there will be value in them. And I think figuring out how we make sense of this as operators, individual human operators in this world, is going to be really challenging, I think. So Pump, their shift that we'll talk about a bit. This is very similar to that. I think one of the things that so we're seeing this sort of NFT world come together, and we're seeing meme coins come together. And I think a big part of how successful this will be, in my mind, is how effective Zora is of breaking out of their current UX and sort of mental models and actually starting to serve people who are bringing liquidity. And I'd say that's my biggest concern with this right now is I haven't seen an eagerness to go do that yet. It's not a resistance. It's just like maybe not it. And it shows up in small ways, right? Like there's no chart for this. So you really have a hard time understanding where you are. The contracts, like, I couldn't sell when I wanted to sell. I couldn't buy when I wanted to buy. So there's some technical stuff there that I'm sure they're working on. And the, what is the right way to display my ownership and my collection in these things now? So
right.
I think there's just so much work to be done here that's fascinating. And I think Zora culturally needs to figure out how to go and step into that more trader-centric world, or they're going to struggle with actually getting the liquidity that they really want here.
Right. Well, we're right. I think like just high level. It's a more complicated model, and you got to like sand the edges to make it intuitive, and I guess remixing some of the other things on the agenda here with like pump and attention assets and stuff like that. I think like there is a connection here, which is like pump just made it like so stupid simple to put media on chain, right? Like and it's image, ticker, description, like go, and with Zora, I think the audience that they cater to, are not degens. They're real creators. They want to be more thoughtful about how and why they're putting media on chain. And so, the challenge is like, how do we like merge these two kind of worlds of, speculative trading, dumb, simple to people, with people who want to be more thoughtful and intentional about what they're doing.
I'm not sure that there's that much distance actually. I mean, I think there is at like the most valuable numbers, but I think from like a general sense, especially as we looked into the data, I don't think there is actually as much of a difference between the user groups really there. I mean, there is and there isn't. And I think actually it is how do we go? Is there, I mean, this image is perfect. Go back to that image piece. It's perfect, right? Like it's perfect, like there is, you kind of have to move from one of those places a little bit, right? And I guess the question is how far do you need to move here to get that value of the speculative demand? And I think, got to get it on Dextrainer. Got to, there's a lot of sort of block and tackling stuff that a meme coin would go do to go get done that I think these guys need to do as well. But
for sure.
But as far as like I think as far as like it has created enough intrigue and there's enough profit motive in there that, I mean, we want to experiment. I think Matthew Chain just dropped an experiment too, as well. So I think we're going to start to see creators and people start to use these things. People get used to it, make sense of it, and then somebody's going to break it in a fun way, and that'll kind of lead to some new insight. Yeah,
I agree. And maybe this is a good segue to disrupting pump.fun. I've got some thoughts there. That's I think the thoughts kind of weave together.
Love it,
Zora and whatnot. So I was just like, analogies are really imperfect. So this one is definitely flawed, but I think it's a useful thought experiment nonetheless. Which is like, so who had the tweet yesterday about, or it was Peter Pan like put like something down to paper that I've been saying since I saw Pump.Fun, which is it's just like a user generated content platform, right? So actually the thing I've been saying is like what crypto's given us is user generated assets at internet scale, and like Web 2 gave us user generated content at internet scale, and now we can we can take content which drives attention on the internet. We can monetize that attention directly. That's the other thing on the agenda here, attention assets. That's how I think about meme coins, right? It's just like we're just monetizing attention directly instead of indirectly through ads and the like. So that's how I look at prediction markets. And so given that, it makes sense, I think, to look at Pump.Fun as a user-generated content platform, sub-content for assets, and that's what it is, user-generated asset platform. So the analogy is, Pump.Fun looks and feels aesthetically and culturally like 4chan by design. That's worked really well for them. 4chan was one of the first, social networks on the internet. It predates, Reddit and Twitter and all the, it's been around for a long time. I don't know the exact dates, but it's one of the first. And I think if you compare something like 4chan to Reddit, they've obviously taken very different trajectories in their lifetime. And it's worth asking, like, why did they like end up where they are respectively? And so if I had to venture a guess, I think 4chan was early to like this forum based community, and the information architecture of 4chan and Reddit are quite similar. But what Reddit kind of introduced that 4chan lacked entirely was a bunch of curation tools. Like 4chan is just a free for all. It's like chronological, and it's just it's kind of crazy, and that's what the community wants and enjoys. And then Reddit has like moderators in subreddits with moderators. It has upvotes and downvotes. It has a homepage with global and so the result of like all those curation tools is like a lot of the kind of darker stuff on 4chan didn't like come bubble up to the top on Reddit. I think the result is Reddit is like a lot more accessible to more people. So okay, so what does this have to do with Pump.fun? Well, I think like you could take this kind of analogy to Pump.fun and say, well, look, like Pump.fun just like stumbled on something really great. Like user generated assets are going to be a huge deal. And I personally think 10 years from now, as an asset class, like what we call meme coins or memes are just, it's going to be like 10 or 100 times bigger than it is today. And so
it was 60 billion kind of at the top. Is that a number that resonates?
Yeah, that's about right. So like, can this be like a $6 trillion asset class? Like probably, right? Like I think attention on the internet is worth at least that much.
Yeah.
So yeah, like how do we get there? Well, it probably, I think, follows a similar trajectory where like Pump.fun like built the first thing, exposed like the new behavior, and then somebody, multiple people probably will come along and they'll build products that make that more accessible to more people. And I think that like one opportunity is build better curation tools so that like a lot of the kind of darker elements don't bubble up to the top. Now the foil here is that like maybe meme coins are just for degens and they're just for the dark corners of the internet, right? But like I don't think that's the case. I think like culture will meet meme coins where they're at, and meme coins will meet culture where they're at, and there'll be some move to the middle. Yeah, this is the dark middle.
I mean, I think that's you touching on the core challenge builders face right now, right? Which is like, how do you bridge that gap between people who get it right now? And so I think along that 4chan story, which was founded in October 2003, which is crazy. It's like that there was this massive adoption of the internet. So there were all these new people who had, like 4chan in the BB bulletin boards and forums, whatever, like that born and raised there, like don't ever give me a moderator. And yet there was this whole new audience that was coming on. So I think it's this chicken and egg thing again, which is kind of interesting. But I think there's like, we often think of like degens and normies as like the categories, but I just think in that degen, let's just call them crypto people. Degens are, 60,000 monthly active users for Pump. It is such a tiny set of users, right? And so I think there is a juicy, ready to buy a group of users here right now that are in the millions, that are not satisfied, eager, comfortable with what's coming out there. So yeah, I agree. I think what's interesting. I love that answer because I think that speaks to something people are probably very experienced with. I think this tweet was phenomenal, right? What a great idea. Here, asking the internet for answers. And I think there's a couple answers that I kind of want to highlight. One was spend $9 million on a domain name, which I thought was just chef's kiss. I was hoping there'd be more BD talk in here. Apparently business development is the thing this week that we care about. But there was one, and I think it was this one, Sharkify, that kind of actually really earnestly put in like, this is what I would go do. And it talks about tokens, right? So this idea of tokens being a core mechanic that can be used to vampire and or etc. And I've said on the show multiple times, when are we going to get our next good vampire attack, Jesse? This is this whole new world of people who come in for meme coins have yet to experience the joys of somebody just dumping a bunch of money in your account because they want you to use your other product. And and whatever the results, Uni token as an example here, right? So,
But the key is like, so I love this, and I think this is great. But like, what about the product, right? Like, I think what we've learned from vampire attacks is if you just do the incentives and you don't have a better product, it doesn't work. Yeah. So like, what worked really well for Blur, I think, was like the product was actually better for the target user, right? But like, and I think back to like Sushi Swap versus Uniswap, for example, like it didn't really hold water over time because the product wasn't actually better. So yeah, I think all of this is that's an opportunity for somebody, but I think you got to combine it with something along the lines of what I was talking about before. Like, how do you make the product actually better so that the type of content on there, like the way that it's discovered and whatever, it just works better for more people.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to vampire attack, you need to go more degen, not less. So maybe that's not the right thing. But I think it's funny. We've talked about this idea from a scene coin perspective of looking for where there's a self-referencing group of people that are interacting on chain that then expose themselves to it. And I think we talked about a bunch of categories. Pump wasn't one of those originally, and now I'm like, oh, there is actually a desire there. But I think you're right. Like without there being a meaningful improvement here, I think you kind of get a token, but maybe not much else out of it. But also, this is sort of like the playbook that anybody who's trying to launch a token today is running as well. So whether that's good or bad, I don't know.
So the connection to Zora that I was kind of hinting at earlier, I think is like, again, like I'm kind of excited about this idea of like, can you bring like a curatorial overlay to something like, a user generated asset platform that actually makes it more accessible. And I think, back to that image of like the professors versus the degens or whatever, it's Zora's on the like far extreme of curatorial excellence or whatever in the NFT world. And so when we talk about like, I was saying, can they meet in the middle somewhere? Maybe that's in broad strokes. That's like what I'm excited about. Like, can someone find like a differentiated type of content, like people are highly motivated to curate and like remix and stuff like that. And then the result is like, oh, suddenly meme coins are now not just for, deplorables, quote unquote, but for everybody,
Yeah, I think that's great framing. User-generated tokens or assets. I'm thinking about
user-generated assets.
UGA,
obsessed. It's amazing.
By the way, like I don't know, we can go on a whole tangent about like user-generated content in the aughts. We got DMCA, which was an adaptation of copyright law, right? Where it was like, okay, like suddenly there's all this copyrighted stuff flying around the internet because of user-generated content platforms. The copyright laws had to adapt to that reality, and we got DMCA, which was a process by which these user-generated content platforms could comply with copyright law while still allowing people to post at internet scale. So it was like copyright law light. And like my moonshot, if we had a better, more friendly regulatory environment, is let's take stock in the fact that we now have user-generated assets at internet scale, and so. Like this old securities laws just don't make sense in this paradigm. Like what we need is like something like DMCA for user generated assets, which would be like securities laws light, right? And like, not saying that these assets would all be securities, but like, that work, like there's got to be some framework that adjusts for the fact that, wow, anyone can create an asset, can trade in 24/7 liquid market. All the data is on chain, hopefully, right? So like the information asymmetry is not there. Yeah. Right. And so like that, anyway, that's another thing related to user generated assets. I think that's just a helpful way to look at crypto as a whole. It's like, oh, we've got user generated assets now. Like, what do we do about that? And so
I like that because it sort of hints at like the fact that the more of these, the easier it becomes, the more that people launch tokens, the less it becomes possible to regulate, and the more important it is for them to come up with a new model that makes sense. And I think we're there already. I mean, it is so negligible to do that. And we have, there's been 2 million tokens launched on Pump.fun, or approaching that, I think, right now. And how the hell are you going to like, there's just, right. So I think DMCA was forced upon people because there was no other way to actually manage the volume and reality of it. And maybe that's going to be the same case here in crypto.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. And I think like, by the way, it's not like when I talk about user-generated assets, it's not just like what we like call meme coins today. I think you can really look at basically like blockchain like tokens are effectively user-generated assets because the value of them is all in the community and like the people running the computers and so on. So it spans the whole space, and I think like meme coins are just like the most in-your-face instantiation of that idea.
Love it. Well, we've got some fun. I mean, I don't know who curated this because they're just running one into each other. Just so perfect transitions here into D-Gods, who was, I mean, I love I love you guys. Frank is such a character. He's just a genuine human being. Genuine human being. And it has just the worst timing. Leaving Solana before Solana pumps, going back to Solana, all this sort of stuff. But I think PC flagged this as being an interesting sort of confluence of like NFT guys becoming meme guys and meme guys becoming NFT guys, and a return to a solo Telegram chat. What are your thoughts on this piece?
Yeah, I really love to see it. I love to see the excitement that Frank had in launching this TG, the like immediately getting people in the room and super activated about the collection. And then I like love this like reframing of how we just even think about these things. Like, you're even saying meme coins aren't it, but also NFTs aren't either. And here he's saying chat decided no more floor prices. That's boomer. It's just market cap early. So when you start thinking about, like the whole scale of the collective and what it's worth altogether, the opportunity that is unlocked in people's minds suddenly becomes this very different thing. And so, he's basically speaking in the vernacular of traders of the last 6 months, right? And it has lit up the minds of believers in these assets, basically. And I think it's really cool to see it happen with NFTs.
I mean, it's fun just to see how we have to kind of like massage narratives to kind of fit into whatever is relevant right now. And I was just thinking back about like the exploration that we did at C Club around like the nouns model. I just searched for the right sort of mechanism to drive things forward, and how exciting that was, and maybe that's not as exciting anymore. And it's sort of like move from NFTs. There's this whole world where maybe NFTs are a better token type. Even if you want to go fundraising with them, they're not as liquid, yada yada. And here we are. We're back in a world where we like the tokens. The more fungible, the better. Give me market cap. And it just seems very relevant given that Zora, given where pump's going, all this sort of stuff. So
I love it
closely. Yeah.
And I loved seeing, I was seeing people on Zora even talk about like the market cap of the Zora token or something. And it's like, I don't know. Yeah. It's a funny metric. FDV is a meme, etc. But all of these things basically are the aesthetics of scale. And that is what buyers are looking for.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay. Should we rewind it back here? We've got a really old tweet.
Sure. I just want, before we do that, there was on the Zora thing. Monolithic Gremlin says, I think even more thoughtful creators in Zora want to be sort of exposed to the degen realm or appeal to degens platform-wise, even if the work isn't deep in that world. I think it speaks to the number one pain that anybody who's creating faces, which is buy my stuff. So that was just related to our earlier conversation about the professors and the degens. All right, what are we running back?
We got this old tweet.
Oh,
where's it at?
Oh,
I loved this. I was searching you before the show because we were talking about attention assets, and then I saw this tweet from 2017, and I was like, "Damn, all right, here we go. This is all the way back." And it's cool to see how long you have held that opinion. So I wanted to maybe just make a space to keep the convo going.
Yeah, cool. I haven't seen this since then.
The look on your face is great.
Yeah. Wait, go. Can you go up to Balaji's thing? So new tools now list a blogger and Twitter will be developed that make it easier for people to use, buy, sell, and discuss. Yeah, okay. I don't know what I'm saying in the first tweet, to be honest. Like, I don't even know what that means for us in commercial finance. So, yeah, commercial. Okay. Yeah, I kind of get it. Right. So yeah, you're kind of dusting off the idea a little bit. But yeah, the tweet below, I highlight some, like I shouted out a bunch of other people whose thinking was influential to me back then. You guys probably have like seen this stuff, but like Simon was talking about this stuff. I think like going back to 2015 or something like that, and I also Billy Rennekamp, who up until recently was like leading a lot of core development at Cosmos. He built this site, and I think the URL was literally meme.market, like meme.markets or something like that. It may still be up. And it was literally, like it was pumped up fun. Like in 2017, it had a bonding curve, and what it was missing was like the secondary deck, so it was just a bonding curve. But these ideas have been around for a long time. Masijal Pinsky also had some really great writing. He had this idea of user feeds where I think it was actually more skeuomorphic, where you could have posts on social media in a feed, and then people could each post was like a token you could speculate on, and that's how the feed would be ordered, right? Like, it's like if people were buying it, it was getting boosted in the feed. So yeah, a lot of these ideas have been kicking around.
The fun part about meme.market is it is actually a new startup, I believe. Who
it's worm emoji.
Worm,
isn't it?
yeah. What's the group called though?
Right, yeah. So the company is called Context. We're investors.
There you go.
Yeah. They're new. So they were running they initially built mint.fun.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now they built meme.market. Right. That's right. And the URL must have been memes.market, or it was very similar. And now they're doing rug, they have a new product called rug.fun.
They launched it here with us a few months ago.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. And I saw Worm at F.41, and he told me he's got another iteration on rug.fun coming soon. So yeah, there's no question in my mind, the attention assets, again, as an asset class, going to be huge, not going away. I do think that, the types of products that produce attention assets are going to be there's going to be a lot of them. And they're going to serve kind of different audiences with different, tastes and curatorial preferences.
Our conversation a couple of weeks ago was right amongst this, maybe months ago, right amongst this. I just got a text message that my friend is having a baby right now, and it completely distracted me. So congratulations to him. Exciting. What the fuck were we just talking about? I was so distracted.
We were talking about, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the context was some VCs hating meme coins, others think utility tokens is sort of and almost it felt like there was this full course press by a certain part of the industry to really devalue or undermine meme coins as a thing. And I remember our conversation was sort of one around really this, where you really made the argument that this is a new type of asset class. It is early and is very clearly here to stay. Now that was in the hype and craziness. We've sort of seen a bit of a fall off from there now, but it seems like your sort of belief in that segment hasn't changed much.
Well, I think they've just been around already for a decade. They're evidently they're not going away, right? The Dogecoin's almost a decade old. So I think I think look, there's a lot of merit to folks who are opposed to meme coins. I think there's merit to their argument in that it is distracting, and it is we're in this really tenuous moment for crypto as an industry, and meme coins are sucking up a lot of air in the room, and they're not really helping us advance the larger goals that crypto has. And so I totally get that, and I think that's coming from a really good place. But I hold the view that ultimately crypto has to succeed in spite of meme coins, not because of meme coins, but in spite of them or alongside them. In other words, meme coins are just one asset class that it can exist on these rails. There are going to be many other asset classes that run on these rails. And so I get it. Meme coins are getting in the way of those other things, getting regulated in a productive way. Yeah. But over time, that's going to come out in the wash, right? We're going to get we're going to make the regulatory, jumps that we need to. And then crypto will be better set up for success. Meanwhile, meme coins will continue to grow, and they're not mutually exclusive.
And I think what the role they provide right now, we talked about it earlier with Pump.fun, millions of tokens are going to have a regulatory impact. So I would push back hard against the idea that they're not useful in our overall goals. Though I do agree. There's some crazy shit out there, and I'm not the one launching a million meme coins. But yeah, I think it just, especially right now, given the regulatory framework, it is the most interesting pocket of tokens in my mind. Outside of, you sort of have infrastructure that can make the decentralization claim, and then on more of an application side, you kind of end up there. And I think, alongside, I think is the right way to look at it. But I'm also really excited, man. We talked to all these teams that are building true utility tokens and taking big swings at huge markets, and I want nothing more than those people to succeed and to break through, and for us to ultimately be able to use tokens for what they're truly going to be great at, which is, distributing value back to the people who hold them. We're just a little bit early right now. We're at time here. We have to get one lightning round in. Peace, hit us up, my man. I'll read it out. How not to write an investor update. Wrist injury after seed round plus round of fundraising. After our previous fundraising round, I suffered a wrist injury due to the extensive work on the pitch deck. This, combined with recurring back pain, severely impacted my ability to sleep and work. I restarted a disciplined regime of yoga and other therapies to manage the pain. I mean, not laughing over somebody's pain, but interesting decision to put that in your investor update.
Yeah, and fundraising is hard. I mean, I get it.
Oh, dude, it's awful. The worst. Yep. Give me one more piece. Can we do the Polymarket one? I just want to talk about that.
Yeah. What do we got? Who could that be?
There we are. I just wanted to flag this. I think there's a whole lot of talk about Polymarket over the last little while. I think it's like Polymarket's telling us the truth. Polymarket isn't telling us the truth. It's somewhere in between. I think this is interesting, though, because it sort of speaks to the challenge of oracles. Generally, how do we get context from the real world on chain in a way that we can trust? And so this is a Polymarket about the Venezuelan election. For those who haven't been following closely, there's big debate around who won. Well, actually not. Maduro, current dictator, saying he won. But the opposition did something fancy where they actually went out and had observers capture, I can't remember what they're called. They basically like printouts of the results from each place. And so they actually crowdsourced this database that actually proves that they actually had more, that they actually won the election. So you have this case where Maduro's like, I am the king now. And everybody else is like, no, we are the king. And so how do you resolve a market that is framed like that? And so really interesting just from a political standpoint and what they did, but also from like a practical challenge standpoint, where do you go, well, is it who's sitting in that seat? Is it the newspapers that are saying it? Like who gets to be the source of truth? And I think it's another example of these teams trying to figure out how we actually go through these edge cases and effectively structure these markets. So it's worth a read if you have it. Jesse, appreciate you hanging out with us for an hour here today, my man. It was a lovely conversation. Look forward to doing it again sometime. Big thanks to Hedrin from Ordinal's Genesis, and very excited about the drop. If you're not on the whitelist, we're going to go do Bitcoin. We're going to have a fun thing at Bitcoin. It's going to be very accessible mint. We're going to all jump over there into the mother chain and get sniped at the same time. Or maybe we can train some people how to snipe other people just to add to the entertainment. That could be kind of fun. A little workshop. I think the link is in the chat. If you're hanging out with us on Twitter, live.cclub.xyz is the place where the chat is. You can see all the links. We'll, of course, put that up on our Twitter as well. Is there anything else that I need? Boys Club merch.
Oh, yeah. It was nice.
My God. Drain him as a hat. Are you kidding me? There's a pair of underwear that has ETH me on it. These women are, let's go. So I'm assuming it's already sold out. I don't even know if it's live yet, but make sure you check that out. And then we're back here next Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We got a great set of guests coming in for the next little while, and should have some good conversations there. Celebrate the end of summer.
Let's go.
I don't like that I just said the word end of summer. I had flashbacks of my diminishing golf game, etc. All right, folks. Thank you for hanging out with us today. Look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you to Jesse. You can find him on the internet, Jesse Walden on Twitter or Variant Fun. And until then, we'll see you on chain.
Ciao for now.
Thanks.